Hello, Laura. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm amazing, Jay. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Anyone who's listened to me talk about Schmoedown for the past couple years knows that I am quite the Laura Kelly shill. Um,
Oh, yay. I have
I,
shills. Yay.
I will also admit, because I am a very honest person, that I am very pleased with Thomas Harper's performance this season and absolutely blown away and a big fan of his as well. But I have
It's fair.
and I also want to say, for the record, you are the one, and even though it was DiMolanta, congratulations to him. You were the one that I wanted to be the one to beat Damon for the first time. So
Oh, me too, man. I was right there. I would have loved that too. But yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. Andrew Denalanta, man, like what a year that kid has had. Like it's just, it's really amazing. It's been an amazing run for him. So I'm happy for him. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. I would have liked to be the first to beat Damon too.
yep. But that's okay. You're still in the running. You still got plenty of shots to get that thing. And if not this season, there's always next season. So I have faith that you will hold that belt someday.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, fingers crossed and toes. But the name of this show is From Birth to Schmoedown. So, Laura Kelly, where were you born?
I was born right here in Chicago. So weirdly enough, I didn't stay here. I was mostly raised in Kansas City, but I moved back here like 7 years ago. So yeah, but yeah, weirdly enough, right here in good old Chicago, Illinois.
I'm glad you brought up Kansas City because I have a question I'd like to ask, and since you lived there, this will be you'll be a perfect person to ask.
Oh, I
Okay.
might not be if it's sports related, but go ahead.
Oh, it's not sports related.
Oh, thank God.
You're probably going to roll your eyes, but to me, it's a legit question and makes sense. Okay, so you've got Arkansas and you've got Kansas.
Hmm.
So shouldn't it either be Arkansas and Kansas, or it should be Arkansas and Kansas?
You
Correct?
think that it would be, you would think that because we don't just have Missouri, we have Missouri, depending on who you're talking to in the state of Missouri/Missouri. So yeah, I would think if it was going to be anything, it would go along the lines of the Kansas side of things. But who knows? Who's to say? I don't make the rules. I just eat the barbecue there. That's all I can do.
How is the barbecue there?
It is it's next level. There's nothing like it. We've got amazing food here in Chicago. There's like amazing meat and everything. There's nothing like the barbecue in Kansas City here, and that is so disappointing. I've tried all the places. I've done the legwork. There's nothing like it.
Hmm. I do have one more question about Kansas City now that I think about it.
All right.
Kansas is in Missouri. What is up with that? I mean, I understand.
I know, right?
But I mean, shouldn't Missouri be bitch or Kansas be bitching that they want their city back?
I know, right? We've got a good old state line road goes right down the middle, and that's right not too far from where I grew up. So I got the best of both worlds, I think. I like to think of it that way.
That's cool. That's cool. I've been to Missouri a couple times. St. Louis once. Went up in that big arch thingy that they got out there.
Ooh, yeah, no, I haven't been up there. I'm not big on heights, so that's not my bag.
No, it was still fun. If you're claustrophobic, you wouldn't like it. It's like a little capsule that only seats 4 people. Is the elevator that takes you up to the top. Very fun though. Very fun.
Nice.
But I have been to Chicago a few times, and that's just such a great city. Navy Pier. What is the name? What's the name of the really tall building right there at Navy Pier? It has the penthouse that Mike Tyson used to rent out that penthouse. I believe
Oh,
some.
I don't know what the building's called, but I think that like in the movie While You Were Sleeping, I think it's like the guy that Sandra Bullock is dating lives in that building. I think Oprah owned a condo there once. I have no idea what it's called, but I think I know which building you're talking about. It's kind of wavy shaped around
Yes,
the outside.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I always loved that, and I always thought how cool it would be to live in the penthouse, the very top level, and be up there during storms and whatnot. Being able to look
Right?
out over the lake and the city, but when those storms come in, that would be so amazing.
Yeah.
But
Or scary if you're me with heights. So yeah.
true. Well, with the heights, you probably, well, I don't know. Surely you've been to the top of Sears Tower.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I mean, I was probably like 12 years old when I did that. But I work right down the street from the what is now the Willis Tower, but will always be the Sears Tower. So I walk by it not every day because I don't work in the office every day anymore, which is nice. But yeah, when I did, it was frequent on my lunchtime walks.
And they probably did not have those glass boxes that hung out over the side of the building at that time, did they?
No, not yet. When I went, we were still doing the Ferris Bueller scene where you had to kind of lean over the railing and just kind of peek
Okay.
over it. They didn't build the boxes yet at that point.
Oh yeah. It took me about 5 minutes to get the nerve to step out in that box, and I did not stay long. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't care how strong you tell me that glass is. It's not a very natural feeling.
No, no, I wouldn't do it. Not for me.
Now, what part of Chicago were you born in?
So I was born right in Wrigleyville. My parents lived in the Wrigleyville area for a really long time. There's an amazing barbecue restaurant here. We've got one good one called Twin Acres, right in Lincoln Park, and my parents were, I think, just kind of north of there, in Wrigleyville. So that's approximately where I grew up. Weirdly enough, my dad is a big Sox fan. My mom is the Cubs fan.
Hmm.
And then I was kind of mostly raised as a Royals fan. So at this point, I've mostly been to Cubs games because I live on the northwest side of the city now, so it's just a little bit more convenient. And oddly enough, I will be there this weekend. So yeah, that's
Oh,
fun.
you lucky duck. I love Wrigley Field is so amazing. It's beautiful, it's timeless. And you sit up there in the stands. Well, I did at least. I've been to two games there. Lucky enough that I saw the Reds there play the Cubs. The Reds are my favorite team. I'm from Ohio. They're Cincinnati Reds.
Nice.
But I would sit there and just think of the history in that place, all the Babe Ruth, all the greats, and the vine on the walls. God, man. And I also remember, speaking of Ferris Bueller, I also remember my brother and I went down there to sit in that general area where they were seated during that Cubbies game scene in that movie. So that was,
Hey,
but
bada bada, swing, bada. Good times. I love Wrigley Field. It's a lot of fun, and it's really fun to go over there now because they've like completely like renovated the entire area around it. Like there's a huge hotel right across the street now. There's like this gigantic park that's right outside of the actual ballpark where like on
oh,
Saturday my friend's band are like they're a cover band and they're playing a huge gig right in front of this park that's in front of Wrigley. So it's just we're gonna make a whole day of it. It's gonna be great. I can't wait.
yeah, that's amazing. Is there still a Harry Carey's restaurant near Wrigley?
I don't know if there's one near Wrigley. There's one in River North, downtown here in Chicago. There's a Harry Carey. Is it like Italian, or maybe it's a steakhouse, or maybe it's an Italian steakhouse? But there's something in River North. I've walked by a few times.
Yeah, I remember going to the one there downtown, somewhere, somewhat near Hard Rock Cafe or Hard
Yes.
Rock. What I'm not sure if it's cafe. It's more like a big venue restaurant. It was really cool in there. But that Harry Carey's, I tell you what, that is the best burger I've ever had in my life. Um,
Oh, nice.
I feel like Marshall in How I Met Your Mother, and he's just searching for that perfect burger that he had years ago and can never find it. That's how I
Oh,
feel Harry Carey burger.
oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. I love that idea that we've got something like that here in Chicago. We've got a lot of good burger places, but I'm all about Shake Shack. I love that New York import. That's my jam.
Oh yeah, and the hot dogs too. What's the name of that 24/7 hot dog joint? Um,
Ooh, I don't know if we have a
are you
24/7 one
familiar with
anymore.
what it's? Oh man, it's. I'm trying to remember exactly the area we were in,
Well, if
but
you're near Harry Carey's in the Hard Rock Cafe, Portillo's is right over there. They're not 24/7 though, but they've got a damn good hot dog. There's the Wiener Circle up in Lincoln Park. They're the ones who stay open very late and they are rude to you. So you'll see a lot of videos of the people working there just like screaming at people, which is always really fun. But yeah, I'm trying to think if we haven't I guess I wouldn't know if there's a 24-hour one. I go to bed at like 9:30, so I wouldn't know.
it's an older place. It's not downtown. It's an older place, and I think if I remember correctly, there's a huge hot dog out there, either on the building or on a big sign. I just got it's
Oh.
been about 5 years since I've been to Chicago, maybe more. Wow. Yeah, it's been a long time, but I do remember Uno's. Never forget that.
Love a good Uno pizza. Now the thing about Uno, and that's really really fun, is next time you come here, anybody comes here, Uno's and they do a like pizza making class. So you can go at like 9 a.m. and order a beer and like learn how to make deep dish pizza. And they take you into like the kitchen. And they make the dough for you. So all you have to do is like do your toppings and you like crush the sauce with your hands with the tomatoes. It's so much fun. It's an amazing like crazy touristy thing to do, but it's super fun. Highly recommend.
Well, it sounds like it's not a touristy thing to do. It sounds like you've done it many times.
I know anytime we have tourists come in to visit, I'm just like, yo, we got to go do this thing. We're going to go make pizza. We're going to get beers at 9 a.m. Don't ask questions. Just get in here.
That sounds awesome. Man, now I want to go there just to do that. I mean, I don't care about the beer at 9 a.m. thing. Just have some orange juice, please.
Sure.
But that sounds great, though, being able to do something like that. And I don't know. It reminds me of one time I called McDonald's because they got my order wrong. Hey, man, plain with cheese only, that only means one thing. You know what I mean? And I got home. They had put everything on it. I called them. I went back. They put everything on it a second time. I got home. I called them again, and I made the smart ass remark. Well, what do I have to come in there and make it myself? And she goes, "You're more than welcome to." I went back up there, and they would not let me back behind the counter.
Oh God, I can't get past the fact that you called McDonald's. I didn't even know that was an option.
Oh man. Well, plain means plain. Come on, guys.
That's fair. My sister's a plain cheeseburger fan too, so I hear you.
Oh yeah. That's the only way to go. I used to not get cheese on it at all till I was about 15. I was 15 till I started getting cheese on my plain burgers. So
You're like, my palate has expanded. I would like the cheese, please.
yeah, well, that's something. I'm very picky, and I have odd taste buds. My thing is, there are a lot of things that I see that I want to try, but I want to be able to pick and choose what is in that. Like I don't want, like, if there's onions or tomatoes, like I want to be able to say I want this, but I don't want this in it. I don't want this in it. I don't want this in it. And I'm sure I could probably make that request at a restaurant, but I don't want to be that guy. So
So it's like buffets are just the win-win in a situation.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Excuse me. So what kind of things did Laura Kelly do as a child to have fun in Chicago? Well, real quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was mostly Kansas City, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say you made the move to Kansas. How old were you when you moved to Kansas City?
Well, it was weird. We did a little bit of back and forth. So I was like 4, I think, when we moved to Kansas City, and then I was 7 when we moved back to Chicago and lived in a suburb, and then I was 9 when we moved back to Kansas City after that. And then I was 25 or no, 26, 27, I don't know. I moved back here like 7 or 8 years ago. So yeah.
Okay, so most of your making memories with friends and stuff like that, running around outside of the house, that would have been in Kansas City.
Yeah, mostly the thing that I remember about living in Lake Zurich when I lived in like a suburb up here was like Tamagotchis were huge at that point. So I had like probably 3 or 4 different little, Neopet comment Tamagotchi things. That was mostly like 3rd grade for me.
Right on. Now, what time did you start to get into movies and realize that there was something magical on the screen happening?
Gosh, that's hard to pinpoint, I think, for me, because I'm like, I was like raised on Disney. That was my era. So it was all about like Little Mermaid and 101 Dalmatians and Lion King. Like that was kind of what I came up with. So I think probably like it was probably really early on, like going to see those movies in theaters. Like I remember like crying seeing The Lion King in theaters, and who knows how old I was. And to this day, I still cry in most movies. But that was kind of what shaped it for me. I think was a lot of those like kind of what we think of as like the classic Disney animation era.
Right. See, and me being a little bit older than you, for me, it was like the Dumbo and Bambi and those 2 movies ruined me. Honest to God truth, I was telling Roka about that I saw Bambi as a kid and it made me cry. And that really turned me off I quit watching Disney animated movies. As a child, I made that decision. To this day, can't stand them. Other than,
Yeah.
I will say, the Robin Hood with the fox, that is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life, and I love that.
It's a solid one.
Yes, so good. But yeah, Dumbo also made me cry because it's like, dude, all he wanted was a friend. What the hell, man?
And the scene with like the trunk where the mom is like swinging him in the truck. Oh god damn. Like I remember hearing that song, I think, or like whatever that lullaby is that they play. I think it played in one of the trailers of like the new Dumbo. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not seeing that. There's no way. Absolutely not.
Yeah, and Lion King, I saw that once. And I fast forwarded through every single song except the opening song.
You're just like, Disney movies equals death. That's all it is. You just equate those two things. If those are the two movies that you were just like, I'm done.
I really do feel that it seems like every Disney movie, or the majority of the animated ones, is themed around death, mostly a child losing a parent, something like that. Isn't that kind of morbid? I never understood, like, hey, let's go watch, just never, oh my gosh. It never made sense.
A little dark.
Yeah, just a little bit. Speaking of dark, when did you get into Star Wars? Because you definitely, I mean, I don't know if you're a Sith fan or a Jedi fan in real life, but as far as Schmoedown, you're definitely throwing off the Sith vibes.
Good, that's the intention. I think that I saw the Phantom Menace. I know I saw it when it like around the time that it came out. It just didn't really like leave an impression on me at that point. So I'm a super late bloomer when it comes to Star Wars, and whereas I've kind of always had a fandom, I've always had like a sort of nerdy group of people to call home. Star Wars was sort of a late thing for me, which that was like 2015, when Force Awakens came out, and that's what kind of ignited it for me. So it was more recent than most people would probably think.
Okay. I normally don't skip ahead this far. Sometimes I'll skip ahead a little bit and then backtrack a little bit. I never skip ahead this far to the Schmoedown portion of the show. But how did you gain that much knowledge and retain that much knowledge in such a short amount of time to be at where you are now in the Schmoedown? That's just amazing.
Because I'm a weirdo. The thing is like, when I was a big Harry Potter fan, like Harry Potter trivia was kind of my thing. And like, it just kind of it's always sort of come with the territory for me. I don't know why Star Wars was that thing that I latched onto so powerfully. I think part of it was like going to Star Wars Celebration in 2017 was kind of this like, I don't know, molding experience for me, like waiting in line all night long, back before we had the like ticket lottery things and we all had to just stay up all night waiting for the big panels. Like there's only so much you can do. And so inevitably you get to know the people around you. Somebody's got a couple Trivial Pursuit cards. You end up playing around with like, then next thing you know, you've got a group of 15 people sitting around playing Star Wars trivia, and it's just a grand old time. So it was, part of that probably is what shaped the experience for me. It was one of those things where I just kind of like realized I knew a lot more than I would have guessed for how new I was to all of it. But I just remember sitting around answering questions, being like, oh, this isn't hard. Like I've managed to retain all of this information for some weird reason. I don't know. I can't explain these things.
See, I used to think I had decent Star Wars knowledge when the Star Wars division first started. And now, not only in Star Wars, especially Star Wars division, but in all divisions, I quit playing along 2 years ago because there's no hope for me to. I just sit there with like, I feel like I'm a deer in the headlights, just staring at the screen. Like, what are you talking about? So I don't even try anymore. That's how amazing the questions are. So yeah, I find that absolutely fascinating that in that short amount of time that you've come as far as you have in the Schmoedown in the Star Wars. That's just crazy.
Yeah, no, I think a big part of it is like my naturally competitive nature too. Like I wasn't really like a sports kid, so I like had to channel all of that into something. And for some reason into adulthood, that was just Star Wars. And I don't know why. But yeah, like going to pub trivia was what came after Star Wars Celebration. And then I met my friend Alice, who I now host a podcast with. And the two of us kind of entered the Schmoedown world together. So that was, that's kind of, it just kind of snowballed. You know, you bring that competitive energy and somehow combine it with movies. How do any of us get here? I guess that's kind of the answer.
Now, being so competitive, but not being into sports as a child, what did you do to soothe that competitive nature?
That's a really good question. You know, like I had three younger siblings, so there was like probably just a lot of violence there, like a lot of like running around the neighborhood and playing in the creek and just getting dirty, and it was just a mess. So there was a lot of that. I did, like, weirdly enough, I did ride horses for a really long time, and I did like competitive like hunter jumping and things like that. So there was a little, I shouldn't say I wasn't an athlete at all. There was a little bit of, you know, that kind of stuff. But when it came to the sort of like team sports, I didn't excel in that particularly well when it came to like softball and things like that. My parents tried. I mean, God love them. They really did try. And I'm 6 feet tall. So anytime I like walked the halls of any school, every coach was just like, oh my God, come play basketball. And I was just like, like I just no interest at all. So it was, I weirdly enough, I'm like, I just am kind of like, my brothers are very much like tall and lanky like I am, and they excelled in sports. I just missed that gene somehow.
What was there anything in school that you did participate in that weren't sports necessarily? Maybe, I don't know, a debate club or anything like that kind of thing, or did you just kind of do your own thing?
I was a choir and theater nerd, so that was my jam. I mean, like my senior year, I was in two different choir classes my senior year of high school. And then like I think even for a while I was like kind of the like teacher helper and like even like the younger choir kids class or something. Like I was that was my jam. And so getting to like be in the big musical theater number and then like getting to do the big like sort of show choir numbers in the spring, that was really what kept me busy through most of high school, was getting to do that kind of stuff.
And what high school did you go to, and what was the mascot?
I went to Shawnee Mission West. Our mascot was the Vikings, and Paul Rudd and Jason Sudeikis both went to my high school.
Oh, wow.
I know, isn't that weird? It's weird.
That is awesome.
Not at the same time as me. I'm younger than they are, just to be clear. But yeah, good times.
Well, I had also done Adam Witt on this show a little bit ago, and I found out that he lived in a town and grew up 20 minutes away from me at the same time that I was living in my house. So we were really close to each other. I mean, don't even get me started on that. He and I were talking about roads. Like, hey, I was like, hey, you know this one road? Yeah, I remember that road. I drove down it all the time. I mean, it was, but yeah, that's crazy. Sudeikis is one of, oh my gosh. I still want, okay, The Mandalorian, that opening scene with the stormtrooper, him and the other stormtrooper. I want Taika Waititi to do a TV series that is about a unit of stormtroopers in that same vein. Like what are they doing when they're not shooting their blasters and they're not hunting people down? What kind of silly stuff and antics are they getting into? I still want that so bad.
I don't think that's a bad idea because it's the post-Empire world, so it's a really good question. Like, what are they doing all the time? I would also like to know, besides punching Baby Yoda.
Yeah, and trying to shoot a rock or whatever, and they cannot hit them.
Yeah, clearly they're not doing target practice, so we know that much.
That is very true. Now, in high school when you were doing the plays and whatnot, what roles were you doing? Were you like on stage performing, or did you do backstage type stuff, or?
No, I never did any backstage stuff. I was always on stage, but I was always like, in the chorus, kind of in the background. I never did any of the kind of lead role stuff, which is good because the one play that I did get cast in where I actually had a bunch of speaking lines. I'm like, in retrospect, I'm like, I don't know why they put me in this. I I don't understand. Wasn't something that I excelled at, and that was fine. Because I had a lot of fun doing it, and I had a lot of friends that I got to do it with, but it was just I was happy to sort of leave it in the past by the time I went to school. I just didn't really have, or by the time I went to college, I kind of just didn't have any business being up there if I wasn't singing. So that worked out for the best, that there was more musical theater to do in high school than there were plays for me. So that was fun.
Hey, that's fair enough. I don't know. I like being on a stage. I enjoy it. It's you get that rush, but it's always the best feeling is always when you're done and you exit the stage and it's like, okay, now I can breathe and enjoy myself. But yeah, I know that just, man, I don't know. Just thinking of a specific moment, I'm not going to get into that story. That was embarrassing. But anyway, I just had a terrible flashback to a botched performance. There's people still wondering what that song was about if I was ever going to finish it. But I didn't. I gave up. I gave up halfway through and then verbally just said the song ends like this, and then I moved on to the next one. Absolutely terrible. And that wasn't even the worst. But anyway, I love talking about theater and all that kind of stuff. I was never into musicals, but I love just straight up stage plays, like where you just nothing but acting chops. But yeah, the musicals, they're not bad. Chicago is my favorite musical, though. I love that movie. Well, I shouldn't say musical. I should say movie, because the movie's the only thing I've ever seen. So I don't know that I would enjoy it if I went to see it on stage or something like that. But I do love the movie Chicago. So
it's a good one. I've seen it on stage and I've seen the movie quite a number of times. It's a good one. Solid. I think the thing with musicals is that I was always so incredibly happy when they were over, because we only did the show like 3 or 4 times when I was in high school. Like every fall there was a musical and we did the show 3 or 4 nights and then it was over. By the time it was over, I was just like, man, I hate this show now. Like, I used to love West Side Story. I used to love Wizard of Oz. Man, I hate those shows now. Like, I have no desire to see the new movie or anything. I'm just like, I was in that show. I'm so sick of it. If I never hear a single song ever again, it'll be too soon.
I can completely understand that. So
yeah, I don't know how performers do it over and over again for like months or years or whatever. I just would die.
Yeah, well, I dabble in music a little bit, nothing major whatsoever, and I haven't played a show in probably 12 years. But I always found it interesting how bands could just tour like that and just play the same songs every single night. I mean, whether I wrote the songs or not, I could not do that. I would get extremely bored playing the same things every night, doing the same thing like that every night. So kudos to people who can do it and enjoy it still. That's amazing.
Right.
But I personally, I can't do that. That's beyond me.
Yeah, beyond my attention span. I couldn't either.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what college did you go to?
I went to the University of Kansas. So I studied music therapy was my major, my first year that I was there. And they had like one of the few music therapy programs in the country. I kind of thought like, oh, I'll combine this love I have for music with this desire I have to work in like the healthcare industry. But it turns out I'm bad at science, so I can't do that. And it ended up just kind of being a lose-lose. And I moved on and ended up going to journalism school at KU, which worked out really well. That was a lot better for me, I think. I think when it came to music and like studying it in school, I learned really quickly that it wasn't fun anymore when it became work, and that some things just need to stay sacred. And for me, leaving music as like a fun thing and not a work thing was really what was best for me.
Yeah, well, that makes sense too. With anything, really, you don't want to. I don't know. I never thought about that until you just said that. As soon as you said that, though, like studying music, yes, it would feel like a job. It'd feel like a chore, I would imagine.
Well, I'm sure that there are some people who like it comes naturally to. Like music theory for me was not something that came naturally to me. It was so freaking hard. And then the fact that I had to like take more of those classes after my first semester where I almost failed the first one, I was just like, this is not feasible. This is not going to happen. But yeah, I imagine there are people out in the world who that kind of stuff comes naturally to them and they probably have a lot of fun with it. And I'm sure there's people say if you're having fun at work, you never work a day in your life. And maybe if I'd stuck with it, I would have come around to that, but it just didn't work out that way for me. And that's all right.
That's true. That is true. Now, when you switched over to journalism courses or classes, I'm not sure what you call. I went to community college in my late 20s for a couple semesters, and I'll admit I just went because I wanted to take some English classes and do some writing and be challenged and stuff like that. So I kind of did want to get a degree, but at the same time, I just really wanted to expand my writing and stuff like that. So I also took some math classes, which I did good in, but man, I am not a math person either. Now, but when you're doing the journalism classes, how many years of that, like, can you break down for me what exactly that entails? Because I mean, obviously we all know you can go, attend classes for that, but I mean, what kind of stuff do you do? What do you learn? What's the curriculum like?
So for me, a lot of it was not so much on like I want to be like a journalist and be a writer side. There were two different tracks, and the track that I was on was much more like I want to work in public relations and advertising, and that major was within the journalism school. And I thought that that would be a really cool career, and maybe it would have been, but I did want, I guess I'll back up to answer your question. It was a lot of like learning about the media in general. So like it wasn't just like how to write and how to use proper punctuation and things like that. The journalism school I went to also had like ethics classes that we had to take. It's one of the few journalism like schools in the country that did that. But I was much more along the lines of like, this is what it is to build an entire advertising campaign from the ground up. And here's how you conduct like focus groups and things like that. So that was a lot of what I was studying. And then ultimately I worked for a marketing agency for 3 months, and I worked for horrible people, and I didn't last in that job, and I wouldn't have been happy, I don't think, in that career at all. So I'm glad that I left. But it was, that's, you live and you learn. You go to school and you spend hundreds of, or tens of thousands of dollars to learn something, and then you don't do anything with it. And that's life, I guess,
Very well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, my nephew's going through that now. He graduated from college, but now he's got the student loans to worry about paying back. But hey, I don't know. Hopefully he can do something with it. But now, what part of I think maybe you kind of said a little bit, but I just want to clarify, what part of journalism were you interested in? Was it more like maybe, was it more reporting? Was it more like a behind the scenes kind of a thing?
No, it wasn't. It really wasn't kind of either. It was more of like I wanted to be like a copywriter working for an advertising firm, writing all the fun, clever slogans that people write. So that was kind of what I was hoping to eventually become. Ultimately, somewhere along the lines, I got sidetracked and started doing a lot of like event planning type of stuff. And then kind of once I graduated, I was sort of working in like administrative assistant roles, and like event planning was sort of part of that. And then somehow that kind of got rolled into like HR stuff. And then I ended up at the financial firm that I work at now, and I kind of do all of those things still at just a sort of higher level. So it's been an interesting ride, I guess, but at no point was I ever really like, I want to be a hard-hitting reporter journalist. Like that wasn't what I was going for by any means.
Right. Okay. Now, interesting question here. What do you coworkers think about the movie trivia Schmoedown and all that?
Oh, they're really excited about it. I mean, most of them don't know about it, but like the few of them that do, and like my boss is really supportive and he's really into it because he's like a bigger movie guy than I am. like if he probably would have gotten really into something like this if he had like known about it or had the opportunity, but he's just a huge movie buff, which is why we get along really well. But yeah, they're really supportive. I think I haven't met anybody that's been like, you need to stop doing that. Like most of them don't even know that I do it. Even actually like our board of directors, a couple of them know that I do it and have like seen, I think that a couple of them have like watched the matches. So it's kind of fun.
I'd be intimidated after after watching you in one of your matches, man. I'd be like,
Oh, I'm very low on the totem pole there, so that's not the case at all, I don't think. But it's kind of fun. It's nice that they're supportive and that they think it's kind of fun and silly.
Let me see here. I had a specific thing written down. I apologize. I'm really enjoying this, and I have not looked at my notes once. I usually do all the time.
That's good. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I don't know. Let me just ask a little bit more about Chicago area and now, like not growing up, but now in Chicago. What kind of stuff do you like to do in the area? Weekends, anything like that? Are you kind of a homebody?
God, I wish I hadn't been a homebody the last 2 straight years, because that hasn't been my way at all before the pandemic hit. And so that was a really rough adjustment for me. But like I'm most of the time it's like me, and I live with my sister. So it's fortunately me and her have like similar interests in that we both just like going out to new restaurants and hitting up new bars in the area. And we live in a really fun neighborhood that's kind of up and coming. And so we're constantly getting this influx of new things and new places to go. So that's been really fun. But we live in such a great city to get to be able to like explore the sort of like food scene. So that's really become kind of the go-to for any spare time that we have. And even when I'm traveling outside of Chicago, like my priority is like, what's the best food and best drink I can get at wherever I'm going, is always number one on the list. So that's kind of what I'm mostly up to. I've got a couple of friends who are fitness instructors, so like hitting up their cycle and spin and yoga and Zumba classes is sort of a regular activity too. But most of the time it's just like, where can we, go eat and drink?
Where's the best food in Chicago, in your opinion?
The West Loop neighborhood is in like Fulton Market is kind of connected to that, is really kind of the best food scene, I think, in the city. But it's nice because there's just kind of always something new all over the place. I work downtown, and so I have easy access to kind of River North and the West Loop, right in sort of the immediate area. And so I get to kind of always be in the know of what's coming and what's opening, which is good for my work because I still do a lot of event planning in terms of like dinners and things like that. So I get to find fun excuses to go try new things all the time, just for work too.
Now, what type of events are you planning?
Mostly like small ones. My company is pretty small. And so when it comes to like our board of directors or their spouses, or our executive team and their spouses, if there's like a big event that's going to be happening for that, my staff's like holiday party, all of that kind of stuff, we plan usually. I've got another person on my team that we sort of plan all of these events together. And that's really the most fun part of our job. When we get to do these like big summer, family events where all of our staff gets to invite their whole families to come, and we get to go on a boat ride or something on the lake. Like that kind of stuff is always a good time. And then we do a big retreat in Arizona every year, although the last 2 years we haven't been able to. So Looking forward to doing that again, hopefully this coming April.
We're at in Arizona, if you don't mind my asking.
Scottsdale is usually where we're at.
I've been there once. I absolutely loved it.
Isn't it beautiful? It's so nice. And we used to do our retreat in March, and it was always like still kind of cold, especially in the evenings. So hopefully like April, I'm thinking it's going to be a little bit nicer. But yeah, it's such a beautiful area. And when we were in there in March, we would overlap with baseball spring training. And so we would always have lots of people go like hitting up some of the baseball games. And the last time I tried to go, the game got rained out. Rain in Arizona in spring, I don't understand, but it happened. And yeah, hopefully I can do that again at some point soon.
Have you ever been to the Grand Canyon?
No.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. I don't know how close it is to Scottsdale, but we were on our way to the Grand Canyon when we stopped at Scottsdale. So,
Oh,
but yeah,
nice.
well, wait a minute. Yeah, Flagstaff, Arizona. Yeah, Flagstaff is in Arizona. I was thinking for a second, I was like, is that even in Arizona or is it in Utah or something? But how much have you traveled? Have you seen a lot of the country or
I mean, sure, kind of. I haven't, I mostly these days, I kind of like to travel places where I don't have to worry about having a car or getting around. So when that becomes a factor, I tend to just be like, do I have to? Although work pays for my car when I go to Arizona, so there's that, and I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I mean, I love going to like visit New York, and I'll be there, next month when Schmoedown is there, so I'm really excited for that. But yeah, I mean, I've seen probably a decent amount. I just don't. It's not a high priority for me anymore to get to parts of the country where they don't have good public transit. I just prefer to be in places where they do.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. And I would imagine a lot of that comes from growing up in the city. You're used to everything being within walking distance pretty much and stuff like that. And I might be wrong, but that would be my assumption. And I would also assume that the reason I love cars so much is because I grew up in the middle of cornfields, and that was the only way I could get out of my house and away from my parents when I turned 16 was in a car. We would literally cruise around the country block just to get out of our houses. It was, but yeah, I love cars. Probably for that reason, because I did have to walk one time. I lived about probably 15 miles or so outside of town. Maybe not that far, and maybe not 15 miles, maybe about 8 miles, 10 miles or so outside of town. And my mom
It's a
made
long
me walk
walk.
home. Yeah, my mom made me walk home one day after detention to teach me a lesson. I did not make it walking all the way home because I was just lazy and I didn't want to walk. So I stopped walking and just sit on the side of the road and hang out. And then
I was
eventually
gonna say, did you just hitchhike? Like, what's the alternative?
well, I started to take so long that my mom called my cousin to come and to make sure I was okay. And he picked me up and gave me a ride home. He said my mom was worried about me and it was okay. So my mom never made me walk again after that. So
Yeah, serves her right.
yeah, that's what you get, mom, for trying to be responsible because I kept getting detention. Yeah. Hey, let me ask you, were you an unruly child or mischievous or anything like that, or were you pretty on the straight and narrow?
No, I was pretty straight and narrow. I'm like which is so not fair because like the minute I did step out of line, and this is being an oldest child of four, like I mean it was just like the hammer came down on me. And like then my by the time my brothers were in high school, they're like sneaking out of the basement to go to parties. And I'm just like, why did I never hear about them like having shit handed to it? Like that's not fair. So yeah, fuck that. But that was not. Unfortunately, I just didn't have much of a choice. I also wasn't like a super social kid. Like I wasn't like getting invited to all the cool parties that my cool brothers got invited to. So that's I guess it kind of worked out. But yeah, no, I was much more on the straight and narrow side of things than I was like a rebellious, unruly child.
I, I believe you because I have no reason to doubt you, Laura. But there's a small part of me that's like, I don't know. I don't.
Or is there a small part of me that didn't get to do it then, and so now I'm just like an insane 30 something? That could be it. Maybe that's what you're picking up on. Oh no, you're muted again.
How's that?
There it is. Now I hear
Okay,
you.
excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, now let me ask you about Mark and Christian.
Hmm.
What point did you meet them? Because I mean, Force Awakens came. Force Awakens comes out. That's when you really start to get into the Star Wars. We're in year 2021 now, so it's only been like 6 years or so in that amount of time. So where did Mark and Christian come into play? How did you become aware of them and the Schmoes and the Schmoedown in general?
So it started from me. my like ultimate love in Star Wars is Star Wars Rebels. That was like sort of my that was not really my entry point, but that was what like made me a huge fan just in general of the universe. And so watching that show, I then was somehow I learned about Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sam Witwer playing a trivia match. And that was my introduction to the Schmoedown, was like getting to watch the Force Bros play Ken and whoever his teammate was. So that was kind of my first introduction to it. And probably what ultimately got me like really into the trivia side of things. Because then when I heard about Sam playing at Celebration 2017, and I didn't even know it was happening at the time. Like I didn't hear about it until after, and so I watched that after, and I was just like, wait a minute, that happened while I was there. What? But that's what I get for camping out for the big panels. Like there was nothing else I could do the rest of the day because I could barely function after that. But yeah, that was my first introduction to the Schmoedown, and then actually meeting Christian and Mark in person would have been Celebration 2019. That's when I walked into the room after messaging on Twitter with Christian to be like, "Can I play?" And he was like, "Sure." And that was that.
Off and running, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you remember? Well, I'm sure you do remember. When did you get the name Lights Out, and who gave you that? I would assume Christian, but who knows? But how did the name Lights Out come about?
That was Christian, I think. Yeah, I'm fairly
I feel
certain.
stupid asking that. I don't mean how did it come about. We know how it came about because you're a lights out player. But I mean, who came up with it, and what was the first time you had heard that?
So when I got drafted by Corruption, I can't remember how long it took for me to play my first match. It would have been like May, like late April or early May, I think was when we did that first tournament digitally in 2020. So when I did my first promo at that point, it was either right before or right after Christian saw it, because I remember him like sending me a reply or something afterwards, and Jesus Christ, he's like, "Yeah, we gotta change your name." So and I remember being like, "All right, mission accomplished," like that. I did something right. That feels good. And so then I just kept doing that over and over again.
Now, in your head, do you have your own nickname that you've given yourself?
No, I used to, but not anymore. I think Lights Out. I I didn't like Luminous when I first got it. I'm not gonna lie. I'll be totally honest with that. It wasn't my favorite. I made it fairly well known to people that I didn't like it, and so I was really really happy when it changed. And I don't intend on ever. I personally prefer that it never change again because I really like Lights Out and I feel very connected to it.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely sounds good. That's for sure. That's for sure. Now, when were you? Well, obviously you were stoked about and you wanted to play in the Schmoedown. Have you ever felt uh, over? Well, I mean, I would assume that everyone would feel nervous, but I mean, have you ever felt so overwhelmed that you've questioned whether or not you should even be doing that?
Yeah, no, for sure. um, the I think I'm lucky in my day job where I have not felt any sort of sense of like imposter syndrome in a really long time. It's been a really really long time since I've felt like that at any point. I've just been pretty like confident in my abilities in my job for a while, which is great. So I kind of forgot how it felt, what that feeling felt like, to feel so much on the outside and so out of my element. Um, that the way that I felt at the studio match that I played was the scariest, most nerve-wracking thing. One of the scariest things I've ever done. Um, and I even to this day I can't imagine having to go back and do that again. I think it's easier to play a match in front of people, having been a person like having been on stage in my past life. Like that was, I was totally comfortable with that. It was being in the studio and under the lights that I found really scary. Hopefully I'd be a little bit better off now, but it thinking about it now and thinking about how it felt back then, it was just terrifying. That was really kind of the first and last time I really felt like I've made a huge mistake here.
Wow. And see, for me, hearing you say that, you've never come off with anything but confidence when you come to your matches. So I mean, I was asking that, kind of wondering, but I really wasn't expecting you to really have ever felt that way.
Yeah, it was scary. It was just, it's just not something that you would ever be. I can't imagine ever getting used to that. I mean, I know that there are people who do it all the time who probably get really used to it, but it's just like I had never been in a position like that before where I just, even watching those matches, like watching people play those matches, I never ever like thought that it would be I never thought that it would feel the way that it felt, it was just really scary. It was crazy. And I remember like being being backstage with Alice, and just like that nervous energy was so like palpable, and it just had no outlet, that I think we were just like, I can't remember if she was playing music on her phone or if there was no music, and we were just dancing backstage to no music. And the wheel was back there, and I remember like Andrew Demolante, because I was playing him and he was back there too, and I remember him probably just being like so annoyed that we were just back there just like doing our weird little jig to no music at all. And I remember him like looking at the wheel at one point and just being like, that's really strange. That shouldn't, like, the wrong slices were up there. And we were just like, we don't care. We were just dancing. Like I just didn't know. It was just the craziest thing. And it's really funny to think about that now. But yeah, the amount of just nerves and nervous energy, and there was just nothing you could do about it except just try and survive. And so that's what I did.
Now, I would imagine, your Schmoedown career is nowhere near over, in my opinion, at least. Who knows? You may feel differently in the future, but I feel like you're going to be around for a long time. But after your time of competing does come, is there anything else in the Schmoedown that you would like to do to contribute other than playing?
I feel like most people's answer would probably be question writer, and there's definitely something to be said about having, especially in the Star Wars division, having former competitors writing questions. That's kind of the only thing that I would probably ever do with it. I can't imagine myself managing, um, maybe like mentoring a little bit here and there, but that's, it might be one of those things where I just kind of quietly slip away, never to be heard from again.
Oh,
And that would be okay with me personally. That's okay, because everything comes to an end and then things move on, and that's all for the best, and that's the way of things. But I think it would be fun to kind of contribute maybe in some small way, even if it's a little bit of like question writing and mentoring here and there.
uh, or even perhaps put some of that event planning that you have to good use and help out with that. Maybe, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Exactly. I'm always down for that kind of stuff. Organization and that kind of stuff is really what I'm good at. So, who knows?
Yeah, yeah. I would like to know what is the toughest loss that you've had, and what is the greatest lesson that you learned from it, the biggest takeaway.
It was probably just spectacular 2019. Like losing to Alex, I just, that was another one of those moments where I was kind of like, God, I just was not at all prepared for this in the way that I should have. Um, Not in terms of like, I mean, like, I put the effort in, I put the work in, and I studied, but I was just like, I just am not on this dude's level at all. Like I didn't come into it prepared in the way that I would be prepared for something like that now. Um, and I remember walking away from that loss, and it really hurt. And then when I played Demolanta the second time for the belt and lost, that didn't feel that way. I felt a lot better about that loss. I did what I could to prepare. I played a lot better than I thought, than, not in the speed round, but everywhere else in that match I played as well as I could, and I thought that it went as, pretty much as well as it could. So that wasn't as hard to walk away from, or that was harder. It wasn't as hard to walk away from as Spectacular 2019. That just felt like, I don't know, it felt harsh in a way where it just didn't feel even. I didn't feel like I was an even match for him at all. It almost felt like unfair. Like I hadn't earned my place to be there at that point, in my own opinion. And I don't feel that way anymore. I went into my collision match against Demalanta not feeling that way at all. And I walked away from it not feeling that way at all. I felt a lot better about it in general. But that was probably the hardest loss, was Damon at Spectacular. Because then I also had to put on like a good face and like, go to the after party at the bar and try and be cheerful about it. And that was hard. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's a great community, though. Everyone seems very nice and supportive. I will, in a reference to that, I do want to bring up from the Marisol McKee title match we just had with she and Ethan Irwin. Just during the match, as she is answering questions right, Ethan Irwin is clapping for her. And I really, really, really liked that. It stood out to me. And that's one thing that I do like about this community, is that at least on the surface, it seems that everyone is just very supportive of each other. Yes, you want to win, but somebody's got to lose. And if it's the other person, it seems like there's no real hard feelings. And it just seems like a really good, solid community. And I love being a part of it. And I'm glad that you're a part of it too, for sure. You've brought a lot to the Star Wars division. I love Star Wars, and I'm still, in the back of my mind, I'm still freaking out of the short amount of time that you got all of this Star Wars knowledge. It's just unreal to me. But I would also like to know, what match did you take away the most from in a positive way? Like, was the most fun, the most exciting for you to play?
Huh. That's a good question, because like they're all of the recent ones have been fun. When I sort of got past the point of being nervous, the fun was allowed to come in a lot more. Because even like playing my first like virtual match against, was it Sean? No. Who was my first virtual match? Yeah, I think it was.
I think it was.
In 2020, like in my own room, and I was still just shaking the entire time and so nervous. And it's so hard to do that kind of like character stuff when you're that nervous. And so I think it was like the beginning of this year, playing against Molly, that was the most relaxed I have ever felt in a match. And so that felt good. That was when it just felt a lot more, I don't know. And maybe part of that is like, I told Winston from this beginning, when he's like, what do you need from me? What can I do? And I'm like, you just got to keep like, I just need to keep my nerves down, and I just need somebody to help me do that. And so with him bringing in the humor into that component, like that was a huge help to me. Just like, letting that sort of the nerves come out in the form of laughter is what helped the most. And I think that's continued to be really helpful, because that's what takes away the nervous and just makes it a lot more fun for me. And I think I've had a lot of, in every match that I've played this year, it's felt less nerves, more fun. And I hope that it just kind of keeps on that trajectory, because it's made playing a lot more enjoyable.
Speaking of well, okay, let me just ask it. I have a bad habit, I realize, of setting up every single thing that I say. I need to break that sometimes, I think. So let me just ask flat out. Do you find it more stressful to play digitally, to play in a studio, or to play in an actual live event with a big audience?
Probably just in the studio. I only did it the one time. And when I have to do it a second time, inevitably it's going to still be scary. Being for whatever reason, being in front of the crowd doesn't bother me as much. I think because eventually, when you're up there and you're under that many lights, like the people that are in front of you just kind of disappear.
Okay.
So for whatever reason, it's a lot easier. It's just easier to like forget that anybody is watching at all. But for some reason, it's just different in the studio. And maybe it's just because like, from the people who've played, like there are people there. Like you've got Christian Mark like sitting directly in front of you, and then you've got a bunch of people sitting like in the sort of small audience, like off to the side, but you can actually see all of them still. And it's people that like play this game and are really good at it. So it's kind of almost even more intimidating just with that. I think. So it's a weird mix of, different ways that we pull this off, but that's probably the scariest version, I think, is just playing in the studio for sure.
I have one more question I would like to ask you before I let you go here. Thank you for your time again. But I want to run this by you and get your opinion on it. I've asked a couple other Star Wars players. I have this idea where I think it would be interesting to have a Star Wars team type situation where you have your Star Wars expert, like would be you for swag, and as an example here, say you for swag, and you are the Jedi Master, and then we would take someone else from your faction who is not in the Star Wars division, and team you guys up with someone who's not in Star Wars, have them be your Padawan type of a thing, and do some teams matches. I think that would be a very interesting dynamic. I don't know. Does that sound at all appealing to you?
I've thought about something like this, not in the Jedi Padawan like aspect of it, but like just in general of like doing a Star Wars teams match, like the old matches, sometimes used to be with like Freddie and Sam. And I think it's the same thing as it kind of was with Freddie and Sam. I'm like, I just don't know what the purpose of that other person would be. It's like, you don't need to pair anybody with Alex Damon in order for him to like come out of the match successful, And like, I can't imagine having like, even like Andrew Demolanta. I know like Nikki to play together would probably be really fun. And even like if you were to have like Alex Damon and Molly Damon and play the Demolantas, I think that would be like really fun to watch actually. But at the end of the day, like someone like Alex and someone like Andrew, like they don't need teammates to be really good at this game. So I think I would have a hard time sort of getting past like what is sort of the point of the other person there. But I don't know. If there was a way to pull it off to get all those people on stage to like play each other at the same time, I still think it'd be super fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm into big stuff. Like I've been for the last 3 years, I've been championing. I've been wanting a 3-way teams match for like 3 years. That's all I want. I just want. I mean, obviously, it would just give me an exhibition 3-way teams match, Christian, just for shits and giggles. Come on, man. I think that would be amazing. So my mind is always like going big like that, but I just always, I don't know, man. Star Wars is just such an awesome division. So very difficult. Holy crap. But it's great to see you in it, and looking forward to see what you do in your career in the future in Schmoedown.
Thank you.
But before I do let you go, this show is inspired by Inside the Actors Studio. So I do like to ask all of my guests here the 10 questions that James Lipton would ask his guests at the end of Inside the Actors Studio. So in honor of the great James Lipton, Laura, what is your favorite word?
Mellifluous.
I usually don't ask for an explanation, but would you mind telling me what that means?
It almost kind of think of it as like the word like a melodious. It's like a pretty sounding.
Okay. Is it an actual word?
It is. Mellifluous is a word.
Not that I would really think you would try to pull that on me, but who knows?
I hope I answered the definition question right, because now I'm sort of questioning it, but maybe cut that out if it was wrong.
That's all right. That's all right. What is your least favorite word?
Fluid.
Interesting. What turns you on?
Intelligence.
And what turns you off?
Mansplaining.
Well, you see, if you do it like this,
Yeah.
I had to.
Great.
What sound or noise do you love?
Like glasses clinking, like cheersing.
And what sound or noise do you hate?
Throat clearing.
Mm, sorry about that earlier.
No, I do it too. I'm talking like incessant,
No, I know.
like loud throat clearing.
Oh, okay. I get what you mean. Oh, I love this. What is your favorite curse word?
Horseshit.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Not used enough, I'm sure.
It's underrated, isn't it?
Yes. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
TV and film development, probably.
And what profession would you not like to do?
Parent.
Really?
Not for me.
I can't see that, Laura. I think you'd make a wonderful parent.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you think it. I don't want it.
That is true. Let's chalk that comment on mine up to maybe half mansplaining. Sorry about that.
No, not at all.
And finally, Laura, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You were right about everything. Now, what can I get you to drink?
I love it. I love it. And I'm sure he would oblige you with whatever you request.
Or she,
Laura,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Laura, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate getting to know more about you behind the Schmoedown and your upbringing. Really, really great conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jayway. This is really fun.
Yes, absolutely. Good luck to you in your upcoming season, the tournament that is just about to get underway that you are in. And good luck next season as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Fingers crossed.
Yes. Laura Kelly, everyone, thank you very much again. And until next week, everyone, please have a great and safe week. Be sure to check out Speaking of Schmoedown, a sports talk show devoted to the movie trivia. Schmoedown airs Saturdays at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, here on the Jcast Network.